Hey there, guys. Welcome to the very first episode of the Regular Guy Vikings Hour. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm really, really glad that you guys decided to give me a shot and watch my first show. So, without further ado, I just had a few things I wanted to get to right up front, and that is in the early going of my channel, I'm going to ask you guys to go watch my intro video. It's going to kind of talk a little bit about who I am and why I'm a Vikings fan, and also just kind of talk about just things like how long I've been a Vikings fan, what I've been through, and just what you're going to expect from this channel. So I just really hope you guys go and check that out. I really appreciate it. In addition to that, as I'm trying to build this channel, I just hope that by the end of it, you've enjoyed yourself. You can give it a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe to the channel and be around to watch future episodes. So, you know, I'm here, and I hope that you guys are going to be along for the ride. So it's Saturday night. Vikings game day is upon us tomorrow morning. I can't wait. You know, I tried recording on Tuesday to kind of get ahead of the Thursday and Friday games. Of course, again, I ran into some technical issues. I recorded the full hour and then found that my mic didn't work in certain situations, so I remedied that. Recorded the second hour, but being a perfectionist that I am, I just kind of watched it back and just I saw some things that I was like, you know what, I can do better than that. And so what it really boils down to is that I just want to kind of take it slow and just provide like the best content I can, and I just want to make sure I do things right. So I'm not going to try and rush through this. I mean, shoot, we've got a whole hour together, right? So there's no sense in me trying to rush through it. So let's go ahead and start this off, right? I promised you Purple Kool-Aid. Well, here we go. I've got my glass right here. Let's drink to that. It's actually red wine, right? Because I'm from California, so of course I'd be drinking red wine. But let's call it Purple Kool-Aid. So in my thumbnail, I promised a few different things. I promised Vikings talkers. We're going to talk about the roster. We're going to go over the power rankings, right? I'm going to compare what I have versus what ESPN had. They put out an article a few weeks ago. I'm going to get to it now. So some of this stuff's going to come to you late, but this is me kind of getting started, and so we're gonna get in the swing of things and really get going here. And then the last thing will be I'm going to do some picks. I'm going to talk about some league-wide picks. I'm going to pick the Vikings season. So we're gonna do a lot of stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. So right off the bat, my first Viking talker is, of course, tomorrow's game against the New York Giants, okay? So the Vikings are going to travel to MetLife Stadium in New Jersey to play the New York Giants on the road, season opener. I was just kind of reading through the preview on Vikings.com. This is going to be the Giants' 100th season. That's pretty cool. They've been around a long time. Seeing that the Vikings are going to be wearing the white tops with the purple pants. I love that outfit. So that's a good classic choice. They're going to be wearing the Kyrie Jackson stickers in his honor. I really appreciate that, and I hope that's just kind of a mantra for this season, right? Just kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say just play in his honor, but just really remember Kyrie and that little time that he spent with the Vikings. I hope that they really just kind of keep that in the forefront and just remind us what a great person and player he really could have been. So in honor of Kyrie, you know, rip to, you know, what appeared to be a damn good person, probably a pretty good player. All right, so here we go. So Sam Darnold, this is his return to MetLife Stadium, right? He started his career with the Jets, and obviously things didn't work out there. And so this is, I think, a big game for Sam, coming back to MetLife to prove the doubters wrong. And so I'm really hoping for big things from Sam. We'll see how it goes. And oh, yeah, and just the final thing they talked about in the preview was just this new kickoff rule, which I kind of noticed in the first two games that we saw Thursday and Friday. Seems like teams aren't really, I guess, they're okay with the other team starting the ball at the 30, apparently. A lot of kicks going through the end zone or into the end zone. Not a lot of returns. I thought there'd be more activity than that. So anyway, so we'll see, you know, maybe if the Vikings have a little bit more strategy in that regard. So anyway, let's get to this game preview, okay? And the first thing I want to talk about is the new New York Giants defensive coordinator. Looked him up. His name's Shane Bowen, and he was actually the defensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans for the past 3 seasons. Did somewhat of a deep dive on kind of like how those Tennessee Titan defenses worked out those past 3 seasons, and this is what I'm saying. In 2021, they finished 6th in points, but 21st in yards. In 2022, 15th in points, 23 in yards, or 23rd in yards rather. And then in 2023, there was 16th in points and 15th in yards. And this is allowed, of course. This is on the defensive side. And so what I'm kind of gleaning from these numbers is that Bowen puts together pretty good defenses, at least, kind of middle of the pack, sometimes edging up towards, top 10, at least in points allowed. They were starting to fall off a little bit, though, year by year, right, as he was there. But I've noticed that there's a discrepancy between points allowed and yards allowed. They give up a lot more yards than they do. You would think it would turn into more points, but rather it seems as if he really puts a focus on the red zone defense. And so I think in this game in particular, if we want to get the W, it's going to be critical to score touchdowns, or at the very least get points and not squander opportunities, fail 4th down conversions, turn the ball over, that kind of thing. Because I have a really good feeling that we're going to be good between the 20s, and it's going to come down to how well we play in the red zone areas, right, on both offense and defense. First, I think the most important thing for the offense is going to be, right, run the ball effectively. That's something that I think Coach KOC really hasn't been able to demonstrate in his first 2 years as coach, is that he can keep up a consistent running game and have great success with that. And I think some of it's had to do with the guy we've had running the ball. In this game, we now have a guy in Aaron Jones who I think could be a big-time playmaker for us. And he hasn't quite hit the cliff yet, guys. Okay, he's not 30 yet. He's still 29. Okay, the cliff doesn't officially hit till he's 30. Plus, all the reports coming out saying that he's feeling fresh, he's healthy, he doesn't have the same wear and tear most running backs do at his age. So I think we should expect big things from Aaron this year. But really, I think the most important thing about the offensive game plan is going to be, don't test Dexter Lawrence, okay? He is by far and away the best player on the New York Giants team. He's great against the run. He's great in the pass rush. And so I really think it's going to be important to not try and pound the ball between the tackles and really test Dexter Lawrence. That's probably just going to be a failed experiment. I think it's going to be smarter to try and run some sweeps and some off-tackle type runs and see if Aaron Jones can get out in space and maybe break some tackles and get some chunk runs. In addition to that, you need to mix up with some screens, right? I don't really know how or what Darnold and Jones's chemistry is going to be in terms of the screen game, and Coach KOC hasn't really shown a propensity of really having an effective screen game to this point, but in his career, Aaron Jones has been an excellent screen game running back, and so I think we should really make it a point to try and get that working, and try and, especially when you consider the fact that it feels like the Giants are going to be a little bit aggressive, right? They've got some good pass rushing talent in terms of Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau coming off the edge, and so I think if you can kind of use that aggressiveness against them and utilize the screen game, I think it's going to come in really handy for our offense. Again, I was just talking about the fact that I think the Giants defense is going to be aggressive. We're going to need plenty of snaps from Josh Oliver, CJ Ham, because you're going to want to keep some guys in to block, right? You're going to want CJ Ham in to pick up blitzers. You're going to want Oliver in there to chip block. I feel like, Burns is probably the best pass rusher they have. He's shown an ability as a veteran. I wouldn't say he's elite. He's definitely very good, and I think he's the kind of guy that Darisaw can handle one-on-one, and I absolutely believe that Darisaw can handle Thibodeau one-on-one as well. But if those guys are going to be on the left side and they're going to be testing Brian O'Neill, I think that Brian at times can be a little bit susceptible to speed rush off the edge. And so I think if we have Oliver out there to help chip and help on those types of pass rushes, I think we'll be okay in terms of defending the run as long as we keep blockers in to handle it. Lawrence needs to be double teamed. Seriously, if we're not double teaming this guy on every single play, I don't know what we're doing. If he gets one-on-ones, he's going to crush us on the inside. Really, my biggest concern for the game, honestly, is Dexter Lawrence just totally just taking over the game. When you talk about our inside line, you're talking Blake Brandell, Garrett Bradbury, and Ed Ingram. I can't say that I necessarily trust any one of the three in pass protection. They have a tendency to have very bad pass rushing reps, or pass protection reps, rather. I have a lot of confidence in the run blocking arena, but when it comes to pass protection, those three guys, they're susceptible just having bad reps, and I think that Dexter Lawrence has a potential to wreck the game if you allow him to. So let's keep two bodies in that guy at all times. The secondary, boy, I gotta tell you, they're young, they're inexperienced, and there's really nobody in that secondary. Nowhere in either the cornerbacks or the safeties would you consider anyone really elite. There's a couple of solid guys in there, and a couple of young guys that you think, hey, they could take the next step, but you don't really know. So to this point, the secondary can be had. And when you talk about the kind of receivers that we have, it's not just that Jefferson and Addison are good receivers, which clearly they are, Jefferson being perhaps the best receiver in the NFL, but these are guys who win one-on-one matchups easily. Okay, they have great footwork, they run excellent routes, precise routes, and those are the types of the receivers that can burn young and inexperienced secondaries like this. So I think as long as you give Sam protection, and when he's getting rid of the ball at the back of his drop and releasing the ball and getting it out to guys like Jefferson and Addison, I think you're going to see a lot of nice passing plays coming out of this game. So I just think that's probably going to be, I wouldn't say it's necessarily going to decide the game, but I think it's really going to help in terms of moving the ball consistently, in addition to, of course, what I said earlier about Aaron Jones and the running game and the screen game, things of that nature. Flipping to the other side of the ball, let's talk a little bit about Daniel Jones, okay? I really don't think much of Daniel Jones, I'll be honest. I think he's probably one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league. I think he relies a lot on his athleticism. Plus, he's coming off a torn ACL, so who even knows how good he's going to be athletically at this stage in his career, but we'll find out. He really, I think, the best he's ever played in his career was 2 years ago in those two games against the Vikings, against that Ed Donatel defense. I mean, he basically made himself in those two games. And I got to tell you, if Daniel Jones thinks this is the same Minnesota Vikings defense coming at him in week 1 in 2024, he's sorely mistaken. So getting kind of just drilling down on Daniel Jones, you got to minimize that guy's scrambling, okay? Don't allow him to pick up crucial third downs. I remember in that playoff game in 2022, he killed us picking up those just crucial third downs, extending drives. I felt like they had a couple of drives that went over 15 plays or more. And I mean, they just ate up clock, and they just killed us with that. So I really think keeping that guy in the pocket and forcing him to throw from within the pocket, I think, is a really important facet of this game plan. The other thing is prayer balls, right? This guy, I don't know if he's necessarily known for it, but I know that the Vikings secondary in the past has been known for it, where quarterbacks will just throw up these back shoulder fades, or they'll just throw up these prayer balls, and our young and inexperienced cornerbacks in the past, or maybe guys just who weren't very good, they always seem to have their back to the ball. They can't play the ball very well. And I don't really think that's the kind of secondary we have now, right? When you talk about guys like Stephon Gilmore and Shaq Griffin, Fabian Moreau, Byron Murphy Jr., these are guys who understand how to, keep the ball in their sights, play the ball. And I just don't think, we'll see, right? The proof's going to be in the pudding, but I don't think Daniel Jones is going to get away with prayer balls in this game. And in fact, I think if he tries it, I think he's going to end up turning the ball over quite a bit, which, fingers crossed, I hope he does. And of course, another thing that comes from those prayer balls is flags, right? Sometimes if an offense, and we saw this a lot with Aaron Rodgers, right, which is frustrating as hell, but these they just throw them up and just hope for a flag, and it's like it could be a third down, a long third down, and they just throw this ball up 30 yards downfield. Here comes the flag, and then they got the ball at the dang 30-yard line or something, right? The drive continues. So I have a lot of confidence. I'm not saying that this secondary is elite by any means, but it's just that they're a veteran secondary, and I just think they understand how to play in those situations. So I don't think that kind of stuff's going to be happening, at least not in this game. And then finally, I just want to talk a little bit about the Giants' roster talent, or what I believe is a lack thereof. And let me just bring this up. I'm going to bring up my spreadsheet real quick. Okay, so all right, hold on. There's the spreadsheet. We're going to bring it over here. Okay, and I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to pull up my offensive and defensive ranks, okay? So if you look down here, I've got all 32 teams ranked, both offensively and defensively. I've got the New York Giants roster, and I'm talking about just sheer talent, okay, just across the board. I've got them at 32, both offensively and defensively. I just don't think much of the talent on this team. Yeah, they got a handful of good, decent players here and there, but overall, the talent on this team is just lacking. I mean, I just don't see, other than Dexter Lawrence, maybe Brian Burns, and then of course Daniel Jones just going 2022 on us again. I don't see a lot that really scares me about the New York Giants. And just to kind of follow up on that in terms of what we're bringing to the table in my own rankings offensively, I have the Vikings ranked 8th in terms of overall offensive roster talent, and then I actually have us 18th in overall defensive talent. Okay, so then the final thing I want to get to in terms of my game preview is this. I want to talk about Ivan Pace Jr.'s quote, okay, which I don't love bulletin board material, especially coming into week 1, but you know what? Ivan's a confident guy, I get that, but he said, "Oh, we about to go crazy, man. Ain't even going to be no matchup. We're about to go crazy on them, but it's going to be cool." So, ain't even going to be no matchup. That's a little bit of bulletin board material for the Giants. I think we'll see if they have a reaction to that and maybe bring an A-plus game that we weren't expecting. But all in all, again, in terms of overall roster talent, I'm not really a believer. So, all right, let's come back to me on the main screen here. Okay, so I have a few extra notes about the game, and that's this. So I just saw a report come out. I kind of go through the Vikings articles and stuff, see what kind of new information we got. I see that Blake Cashman's going to be wearing the green dot. Okay, he's going to be calling plays in the defensive huddle, and that's fine. I like the fact that Ivan Pace can just be that freelance linebacker. He's excellent in coverage. He's sideline to sideline. He can make a tackle with a fingertip. So let Blake run the defense. Let Ivan play. And the thing about Blake is I haven't gone back and watched his Houston stuff. I saw his PFF grades came across really good. But I don't really know what to expect. When I watched him in that one drive in the preseason against the Raiders, he did strike me as being just a little bit slow. I don't want to see him in coverage. I see him more of a downhill linebacker type against the run in particular. So who they're going to have calling plays on third down, I would assume it's Ivan. Maybe it's Josh Metellus. We'll see. Maybe it's even Harrison Smith. But other than that, Cashman's got the green dot. Okay, so 2 guys are going to be elevated from the practice squad. And actually, this brings me to a point where I'm going to bring my spreadsheet back up, and we're going to come over here to our 53-man roster. Okay, so we've got 2 guys being elevated from the practice squad for the game. We've got Myles Gaskin, which we already knew about, right? Because when Kene Nwangu was released, it was talked about how Myles, even though he was on the practice squad, was going to be elevated to become our kick returner. And then we're also going to get Bobby McCain, who is kind of a hybrid. He's you can call him more of a defensive back, right? He's mostly a safety. I think he can play some corner, mostly in the slot, obviously. And I think he is good in the box, right? He can come down for run support. So that's okay. And then just another note that I am really a big fan of coming into this first game is that we are completely healthy. I saw that Gilmore and Harrison Smith both got veteran days of rest, which is fine by me. They probably need it. And then there was a little bit of concern with Jordan Addison and Jalen Naylor having the ankle issues. I saw that they both practiced fully and are basically ready to go. So the team is totally healthy. So, you can't ask for more than that coming into a week 1 game. So, to get down to... Here, let me bring this main cam back up because I want to just finish off this thought about the Giants game. My game pick. Okay, now you're going to see later on when I'm doing my picks. So I've done my own metrics, and we're going to get to that a little bit later. I've got my own data analysis. I've got my own formulas that I put in, and they help me kind of pick games week in, week out. And so my picks are actually telling me that the Giants are the team to pick, right? So, okay, I'm going to pick the Giants based on the numbers. It's week 1, no games have been played yet. I'm using information that's being brought to the table before any games have been played. So there's not much you can do about making alterations to that. So that's fine. So I'm going to pick the Giants in my pick segment. However, again, let's take another drink of the Purple Kool-Aid. Am I right? Okay. We're going to win this game, okay? And I don't think we're just going to win. We're going to dominate. Sorry, I don't care if we're on the road. I don't think much of the Giants. I think we're better than, again, when I talk about my picks, my league-wide season picks later on. I don't have the Vikings with a great record. I hate that. But I'm going to stick to the, to the data. But I think this team's better than what people think they are. When I look at the Giants' inadequacies and just their lack of overall roster talent, I just can't help but think if we game plan properly and minimize their strengths, they really stand no chance in this game. So I think, honestly, if the Giants score, in my opinion, more than 15 points, I would be shocked. I think they're probably going to score more like 10. And I think as long as Darnold gets us on at least 3 or 4 good scoring drives, maybe scores a couple of touchdowns, tack on a field goal. If we get to 17, I think we win this game easy. But honestly, if I were to have to put a score to it, I'm not going to put an exact score, but I think it's going to be somewhere in the range of 24 to 27 to like 10 or 13. So, I mean, if you wanted to nail me down on like an official pick, I would say like 24 to 10. So we're going to win it by 2 touchdowns. So that's how I feel about this game. So that kind of finalizes my thoughts on the game. And so now I just want to talk a little bit about the roster if I can. Okay, I'm going to pull that up right here on my spreadsheet. And I'm not going to just go through the roster because the 53-man roster has been out for a minute. I wanted to more or less go through some notes I had made because I had made my own 53-man prediction. And I just wanted to kind of run down some of those notes. So I had made a few incorrect guesses, obviously. It's difficult to kind of get it, exactly right. I had actually thought that Jaren Hall was going to be placed on the IR designated to return list, and instead on that list we have Gabriel Murphy and Dalton Reisner, which I'm totally fine with. There was mention of a leg injury after that big hit in the Philadelphia preseason game. When I went back and watched the play, I didn't really see anything happen to his leg, so I thought, okay, either Coach KOC is maybe making it up, or he wasn't serious. I don't know. Maybe he just didn't have all the information, or he was just kind of saying something out loud to maybe try and sneak Jaren Hall onto that IR. That was kind of the vibe that I got off of that. But as it turns out, he actually ends up making the 53 initially, and then ends up getting released so that we can bring on Brett Rippon, and then Jaren Hall is now with the Seahawks. And I think when it comes to Jaren Hall, the vision that I had for the team kind of moving into 2025 and beyond was that we were going to have J.J. McCarthy as our starter, and then Jaren Hall would be our backup for a few years. And then we would kind of, move on and find somebody else to back up, maybe a veteran, who knows. So it does suck a little bit to lose that year plus of development with Jaren Hall. He seemed to be getting more comfortable as the preseason went on. It felt like he was getting it. And so what can you say? Jaren's gone. So we're moving on. We've got Brett Rippon now. I think if I had to be honest about why it happened, I mean, in addition to the fact that Brett's been around the league for like 4 or 5 years now, and I think he probably has a better potential to come in and win a ball game when you compare him to Jaren Hall, at least at this stage in their careers. The thing I think that really was the deciding factor when it came to Jaren Hall, and this is my speculation, obviously, there was something about the way he just did not protect himself. And when you're going to come in and be an emergency quarterback, right, kind of like the last stand, you have to be a guy who understands that you can't just throw your body around. And when we saw what happened with Jaren last year in that Falcons game when he got his first start, I mean, he got that concussion on like the first or second drive, right, of his career. Then you go back and you're watching that Eagles game, and I mean, he just leaves himself out there to get blasted by that linebacker, right? And, I mean, who knows what the actual injury was? It looked to me like it could have been a shoulder or a neck or even a concussion. Who knows? But I just think that ultimately Coach KOC just thought to himself, I love Jaron, but he's not really protecting himself. And I think there's just something about that just didn't sit well with KOC. And I think that was probably one of his main reasons for wanting to move on and bring in somebody else, just more of an established vet. But I digress. Those are just my thoughts on it. All right, so next up, we'll talk about Kene Nwangu not making the team. People talked about that as being kind of the biggest surprise, and I would say yes, it was a surprise because he was kind of just penciled in. Okay, he's your third running back, he's your kickoff returner. But honestly, when you really think about it, Kene, he had so many chances to really make a name for himself. He had that big run in the Raiders preseason game, but other than that, his pass protection never really improved. He never really improved as a pass catcher out of the backfield, and so I think when you got a good long look at Myles Gaskin in the preseason and you saw just how versatile he was and how well he stepped up in pass protection, I just think it made a lot of sense for them to keep Gaskin around and kind of let Nwangu go. And so, honestly, I think it was smart. So, yes, a surprise, but I think in the best interest of the team. Okay, so then another note I had was that Michael Juergens made the team over Tyrese Robinson. After watching the first game and then as the preseason continued, I loved Tyrese Robinson. I had two man crushes, one on offense, one on defense. Robinson was my man crush on offense. Okay, this guy was so nasty in the run game. I mean, he was looking for guys, pancaking guys. Yes, he did have a couple of mishaps in pass protection where he had some miscommunications on blitzes and stunts and things of that nature, and he's going to get better at that. I think this is maybe his third off season now. And so I'm just so happy that Tyrese made the practice squad because I have a really, really good feeling that he will get meaningful snaps at guard at some point this year. He just, for me, he looked good. And I'm really excited that Tyrese is going to have a chance to remain a Viking and maybe even get some playing time. Juergens, I thought, was inconsistent. I mean, he would have great reps and then he would have horrible reps, and it was just up and down, up and down. And so if Juergens makes it into a game, that's going to scare me. So hopefully that doesn't happen. One little note that I did make here for myself was that I think typically teams will keep 25 offense, 25 defense, and then 3 on the special teams. I actually predicted 24 offense, 26 defense simply because I looked at the youth and the depth on defense, and I thought to myself, you need a 26th guy over there. And so, instead of keeping like 10 offensive linemen, keep 9, bring another guy on defense. I predicted that, and that's actually what they ended up doing. So I guess pat on the back for me, right? Okay, next note, we're moving over to the defense now. Taki Taimani, I actually, I wanted him to be on the 53. I had predicted Jonah Williams would make the 53 simply because he didn't play in that third preseason game. And so I thought to myself, oh, Jonah Williams isn't playing. He's a lock for the team, right? And then when Taki made the 53, I mean, I was just overjoyed because he was my man crush on the defensive side. When you watched him in the run game in all 3 preseason games, he was immobile. He was so great. Even when he took on 2 blockers, he didn't give up ground. He would get an arm out on the running back. I mean, he was outstanding. Taki deserved to be on this team. So I'm happy to be wrong about that. I mean, that was the correct decision. We need a guy to spell Harrison Phillips. Phillips is going to need a breather. You need a guy who can come in and make a play in the running against the running game, and that guy is Taki. I love Taki. Came out of nowhere. So good. All right, next up. I got to be honest with you. I don't know why Brian Asamoah is on this team. His first 2 years, and then in the preseason, you're like, okay, Brian, go show us what you got. Man, he looked lost in coverage. He doesn't stick his nose in there in the running game. He chooses the wrong gap. I mean, I got to tell you, there's just a lot left to be desired with Brian Asamoah. I got to admit, I don't understand where he's going to make an impact. Even in special teams, he's not an impact special teamer. Yeah, he plays snaps, but I'm like, where are the plays? So I gotta admit, that one baffled me. I thought Andre Carter deserved to be on the team. I was gonna keep, me personally, 6 edge, 3 inside linebacker. Andre has this narrative about him that he's invisible and doesn't make plays. I disagree completely. He plays very smart. I saw him drop into coverage on occasions, even when I don't think it was called upon. I mean, again, I don't know what the play call was, but it sure looked like he happened to just see a tight end releasing, or running back coming out of the backfield, and he said, "Oh, that's a guy I need to get to." And I saw him go and force quarterbacks to make a second, to look for a second option, and end up just throwing the ball away. And I think in particular, if I'm remembering correctly, it was the Raiders game when Bobby McKeon had that big hit on that tight end. It was because Carter had come out and forced that quarterback to either delay or look elsewhere on that throw. And I'm just, those small things that Carter does on the field, people don't notice them. He's solid in everything he does, and he does have some good pass rushing reps. And I just think, thank goodness he made it to the practice squad. That's a guy worth developing. I think he's ready to play at some point this year, and I look forward to it. Hopefully, that's another kind of prediction that I'll make, because I think Andre Carter at some point will come up with the team and maybe get some snaps. And then finally, just the decision to keep Fabian Moreau over Duke Shelley. Duke, and I know that's going to like surprise some people, like, oh, Duke Shelley was never even a guy that you would consider. And I'm like, no, I don't think so, because I think the narrative about Duke was that he was like, oh, I'm just an outside guy, and that's that. Well, what I saw in the preseason was that Duke started playing on the inside, and he played it well, too. He's gritty. He's tough. And then I also saw him making plays on special teams. And so that's what I kind of got to thinking about when I was penciling in my 53, was I was like, look at what Duke did. He showed us what he can do on the outside in the past. He came in. He was willing to play in the slot. He was willing to play on special teams. And I thought he did well. And so I thought he had done enough to make the team. But to be honest with you, with Fabian Moreau making the team, again, there's another veteran, a guy that you can really count on to play on the outside and be solid and not, look lost and give up big plays. And so I'm actually okay with the decision. Just like my note here says, vet versus vet. I thought Duke showed special teams chops and versatility in the slot, but Moreau is a steady veteran outside cornerback. And so, you know what? That's okay. That's okay. So I'm going to bring me back over to the big cam, because I'm going to finish up my notes just talking to you direct. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the 53-man roster is one thing, but then you have the actual guys that are going to dress for game days, right? The actual actives, right? So the way that it works is you get 48 guys who are actives on game day. Now, when you have a third emergency quarterback, you are allowed a 49th. And then if the first two quarterbacks actually get injured and are knocked out for the game, you can bring in that third quarterback. So he kind of counts as like a 49th guy, okay? Other than that, prior to this, the guys that I had not dressing, not being active for week 1 were Tristan Jackson, and my reasoning behind that was that I just thought that Trent Sherfield brought a little bit more in the pass blocking game, like for running plays and things like that. I think Tristan is still a little bit iffy in that department. He's got definitely down the field playmaking ability, which I think is exciting. I'm glad he made the team. But I think for game days, in terms of like the personnel you're going to bring in and the kind of plays you're going to try and run, I think Trent offers a little bit more versatility. Then, so we have 9 offensive linemen. I think 8 are going to dress, and the 9th guy, who I think doesn't play, is going to be Walter Rouse. Walter, so I saw him at both left and right tackle in the preseason. At right tackle, he looked very strong, both in the run game and in pass protection. At left tackle, he was okay in the run game. He was very susceptible to speed rush off the edge. I would not want to see Walter play left tackle in a game right now. I think he's definitely... he's got good size. I think he's a guy that, once developed, I think is going to be a really good swing tackle and will be able to take over for Quessenberry. And then I just saw, I think in the last preseason game, they tried him out at left guard. It did not go well at all. I felt like he got manhandled in both phases. So if Rouse could just not play guard, that'd be great. So the next guy that I think won't be dressing and not active on game day is going to be Jalen Redmond. And the reason why I believe this is because you're going to need backups at all positions, right? And I think they're going to use a lot of rotations for the defensive line. You're going to have Taki being the direct backup to Harrison Phillips at the nose. And then for the defensive end positions, right, where you have your starters Bullard and Tillery, I think Levi, or LDR as we call him, I think he showed the versatility to play both on the left and right side. So I think that LDR is going to be the guy who's going to dress and be active and be backing up those two guys on the defensive line. Okay, so then, I had shared my thoughts about Brian Asamoah earlier. I don't think that Asamoah should be active on game days. I think that Kamo Grugier Hill is a much better special teamer. And he's a guy who can kind of play inside linebacker in a pinch. You know, he can, if Blake gets dinged up or something like that. And so I just think Kamu brings, or we can call him KGH, he'll bring a little bit more consistency, I guess, when it comes to the inside linebacker position. So I don't think Bryant's going to dress in week 1. And then the Bobby McCain elevation kind of caught me off guard because I had Jay Ward playing. And when I really had to kind of like drill it down and think about which guy Bobby's replacing, I was thinking of maybe removing an edge guy like Pat Jones. I don't think they're gonna take Jihad Ward out of this one because he's going up against his former team. I think they want him to have that, right? And I kind of feel like maybe some of that went into letting Bobby come up for this game as well. So I think that Jay Ward, even though he is a valuable special teamer, I think he'll probably be inactive for this one. Excuse me. And I just want to talk a little bit about Jay just for a second, in that I think there's a narrative about him that he's not a good special teamer, and I'm going to tell you au contraire. He is in fact a very good special teamer. He had a 2 or 3 really poorly timed penalties last year that really cut his grade down on PFF. So when you just go and look at his PFF grade in terms of special teams, you go, oh my gosh, Jay Ward was terrible. Number one, that offsides penalty that he got on that field goal attempt in the Tampa Bay game in week 1 last year was a total BS call. I didn't see it. He was not lined up offsides. I went back and looked at it. He wasn't lined up offsides. I don't know where that call came from. That wasn't on Jay, in my opinion. The other penalties I didn't go back and look at. They were probably legit, but who knows, right? But in addition to that, I just want to talk a little bit about PFF's special teams grades, okay? Because I think that's something they're still kind of getting better at, because right now you have so many different phases of special teams, okay? You have field goal block, field goal pass rush, you have punt return, punt coverage, kick return, kick coverage, right? You have like 6 different phases of special teams, okay? And yet they only give you one special team grade. So they'll show you all the snaps that the guys played for all 6 phases of special teams, and yet you get one grade. They're not parsed out by each individual type of special teams play. And so I think that's something they should definitely work on. They probably are. But I just don't think you can look at a PFF special teams grade and just go, oh, this guy's terrible and this guy is great. And plus, it looks like their number kind of just like is evened out at like 60, kind of like the way QBR starts at 50, right? I think their grade for any special teamer starts out at 60. So if they're around 60, they're just, they didn't see anything, I don't know, special or horrible from a guy. And then if they're high or they're low, they obviously saw something serious. But anyway, off the J Ward. The last guy who I think won't be active for the first week will be a Caleb Evans. And the reason why I think this is because Dwight McGlothern, I think, does bring value in special teams. He showed some real toughness and tenacity for me in the preseason. And Caleb, obviously he's had the concussion issues in the past. In fact, speaking of him, I hope that he wears one of those protective helmets when he plays, because I think he's going to need it. But I just don't think Caleb just really does not play special teams. He just doesn't bring extra value aside from just being like a backup outside corner. And so Dwight, on the other hand, I think does bring value as an outside corner and also brings value as a special teamer. Okay, so those are things that I think get Dwight onto the game day roster above a Caleb. That's just my opinion. I don't care what the depth charts say. This is how I see it. We'll see how it plays out tomorrow. Just checking to see if there were any other little snippets. Not a lot. I was a little bit bummed to see McBride go, in that, it was only his second year. Yeah, okay, maybe he didn't come along as well as they had hoped. I thought he looked pretty good in the preseason, but this guy they brought in, Xavier Scott, he also came out in the 23 draft. He was actually an undrafted free agent. Maybe he's got some more versatility that they liked. So, who am I to quibble over end of the roster, decisions? And then another guy they brought in was an offensive lineman named Ricky Lee. He came out of the 23 draft. He was undrafted. He came out from a small school and he made the Carolina Panthers team as an undrafted free agent, and so maybe maybe there's something there. So the guy they dropped for him was Jeshaun Jones. That didn't really bother me. I had actually originally, because I had also predicted the practice squad rather. I had actually predicted Justin Hill making the practice squad over Jeshaun Jones. So when Jeshaun made the practice squad, and the reason why I thought that was because I just thought, Justin Hill, even though we had just signed him, I thought he had shown a little something in that final preseason game against the Eagles, just a willingness to get in there and be tough and block. And I didn't see that from Jeshaun. He had that one big catch, I think, in the Cleveland Browns preseason game, and I thought, okay, he's got some big playability, and they gave him a couple $100,000 as an undrafted free agent. But honestly, when you have a team payroll over $200 million, like what's a couple $100,000? So it didn't really shock me to see Jeshaun go. So now they brought in the offensive linemen. There was a couple of different offensive linemen that I personally had wanted us to keep, Doug Nestor being one of them. He didn't make it. I don't know where he went. He's gone, though. Which kind of reminds me, just as something that I was thinking about that I told myself to mention, was that Duke Shelley is actually a member of the Giants now. I don't think he's on the roster. I think he's on the practice squad, but so I don't think we'll see him. But good pickup for the Giants, I think. So anyway, so that kind of, there's a lot more stuff. I can kind of show you some of the stuff I made note of. Guys I wanted to keep on the practice squad, right? And just here's our current practice squad, and the IR and things of that nature. These are all things that people have gone over, so we can kind of move on from that. So let's take a moment. Let's have some more Purple Kool-Aid, shall we? And again, if I haven't told you already, please watch my intro. Give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you can. I hope you're enjoying yourself. I'm doing the best I can. A lot of prep goes into this, a lot of things to think about all at once. And so I hope that you're enjoying yourself. So I talked about the roster. Let's talk about power rankings, shall we? So I'm going to bring up my browser, actually. Let's bring it up. I'm going to swing it over here. Okay, so that was actually when I was reading the Game 1 preview. Let's look over here at the power rankings. Okay, so I do my own power rankings, and I want to talk a little bit. There were 5 here. So we're going to talk about the Houston Texans first, right? You see that? Okay, we're going to bring me back to main cam. Okay, there were 5 different teams where my rankings and ESPN's rankings were vastly different. Okay, so the first case in point here are the Houston Texans. Okay, ESPN loves the Houston Texans. They are ranked 6th. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my spreadsheet back. I'm going to start us off on the offensive and defensive rankings here. Okay, so for me, Houston, I have got here offensive roster strength, I've got at 12. Okay, and then defensive roster strength, I've got them at 14. Okay, so a little bit above middle of the pack, but nothing, no top 10, right? Then over here, we're going to go to my actual power rankings. Okay, let's talk about Houston right here, and let's make sure you can see that. Okay, so I've got them with 9 wins this year, and let's just talk about some of the reasons why I think they're going to be. I got them 16th. They're going to be middle of the road for me. So here we go. Let's look at some of the areas where they ranked 20th or lower, right? So they're a little bit of an older team. They've had some health issues, okay? They were not a disciplined team last year, 29th in flags against. Their strength of schedule got much harder this year, okay, which is a vast difference from last year. And then over here, they didn't really add a ton of new talent, at least in terms of what the experts had to say about their draft. 28th was their rank in terms of their 2024 draft, okay? So there wasn't a ton of new talent added to the roster. And obviously, they have a talented roster. I'm not arguing that. But when you talk about their team, where do they have top 10? Just like I don't know, rankings. So obviously QB rank, okay, 7. CJ Stroud, he showed himself to be an excellent quarterback. I can't disagree with that. And then the media loves them, right? The media's got them ranked 6th, and so okay, like that's opinion, right? So honestly, when I did my analysis and I put him into my metric, I've got him 16th. Okay, so it's like I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid on Houston. I don't even have them making the playoffs. I've got them losing the division to Jacksonville, and so that's a hot take, I guess. So let's bring back the browser. Okay, we're gonna talk about the next team, which is Cleveland. Okay, let's bring up the browser for myself. Bring up Cleveland. Okay, we got Cleveland at 12. I've got Cleveland at 24. All right, let's bring it up. Okay, Cleveland. Now, here they are, way down here. I've got them ranked 24th. Let's bring that up so that you can see it above my cam. Okay, Cleveland, I've got them at 7 wins. All right, now let's talk about, again, some of the things where they weren't great. Health, not healthy. Age, old roster. Flags against, not disciplined. Strength of schedule, tough schedule. The AFC North is the best division in football. Easily. Okay, their draft rank, again, didn't add new talent, at least according to the experts. So, tell me, Cleveland, where you're making me like believe in you. Okay, so yes, let's go back to the offensive defensive ranks. Offensively, no, 20th. However, 3rd in defense. So that's what it is. But that's the thing, though, is that, okay, why are you believing so heavily in a defense first team? Yes, we love Stefanski. Yes, I think he's a great offensive mind. But Deshaun Watson's just not it. I'm sorry. And so tell me where I'm supposed to believe in Cleveland. Let's take a look at some of their top 10 ranks. So last year's DVOA, was 8th. That's solid. And then over here, coach rank, people think that Stefanski is a good coach. I agree. Other than that, I'm not seeing a lot of top 10 rankings for Cleveland. So, got to tell you, I'm not a believer. I don't think the offense is going to be good. I've got them 24 as compared to 12. All right, so let's bring up our next one here. Back to the browser. Okay, we've got the Jets, of course, right? Another media darling. Although I guess being ranked 15th wouldn't necessarily mean that you're a media darling, but Jets fans are just so into it this year because they just think so highly of Aaron Rodgers. And I got to tell you, I remember years ago, I used to watch the Herd with Colin Cowherd, and he used to bring on Greg Cosell. And Greg Cosell would talk about Aaron Rodgers, and Colin would ask him, how is this guy so great? And Greg Cosell would say, honestly, there's really no reason why he's great because he does not play well within structure. Aaron Rodgers is literally an anomaly. He is only great when plays break down. Now, I'm not saying he's completely lost that ability in his older age, and we haven't seen it now for, a full season he lost. So we're going to see what Rodgers has left in the tank. And obviously, I know he's got the ego. He's probably got a chip on his shoulder. He feels like he has a lot to prove. So it's like, I'm not saying that he's not capable, but I just don't think that a guy who isn't necessarily great playing within structure and kind of relies on playing hero ball, I don't think it's a guy you can really rely on to like be great consistently and like elevate a team. So here's another team that I guess you could quote unquote call a media darling, so to speak. And we're gonna bring up the spreadsheet again. Okay, let's go over here to my offensive and defensive ranks. So I just don't think highly of their offense. I've got them ranked 26th, okay? But then defensively, yes, great defense, 2nd overall in defense. So it's another defensive forward team that, people are kind of believing in. Then we come over here to my wins formula. Okay, let's look at the Jets. Okay, so again, where are they not good? Well, DVOA, not good. Points for last year, I'll give them a little bit of a break on that one because obviously Rodgers was out for the year and their quarterbacks were just terrible all year long. Age, another older team. Health, another unhealthy team, at least historically. These kinds of things, yeah, they're hard to predict. I'm using old information, but it's like, what else can you go on, okay? Flags against, 32nd. I mean, that's so super undisciplined. And then, case in point, 29th in coach rank. People don't believe in Saleh. I mean, yeah, he's a great defensive coach, but it's like, other than that, and again, here's another team without a great draft. 20th in draft rank. So it's like, you're not bringing in... There seems to be a theme here, right? You're not bringing in a lot of young talent. People don't necessarily believe in your coach. You're a little bit older. You're not really known for being healthy. You have a lot of flags thrown against you. I mean, tell me where I'm supposed to believe. Okay, so we got two more. All right, let's bring the browser back up. Okay, and we're going to go look at the Chargers. Now, the first three were teams that I am saying, no, I've got them lower. ESPN has them higher. Well, now we're moving on to two teams that the ESPN's got low. I'm saying, no, they're higher. So we've got the Chargers here. ESPN's got them at 20. Okay, here's the Chargers. Now, we're going to bring up the spreadsheet again. Okay, and we're going to go look at the Chargers. Now, let's go look at the offensive and defensive ranks. Now, here's the ironic thing about the Chargers. When I look at my own data, my own metric, is that I don't have the Chargers having a very good roster. I don't. 28th in offense, 29th in defense. So it kind of cracked me up that I was like, why does my my metric have these guys coming out as the 13th overall team? And so we're going to take a look at that, okay? So, okay, here's one. He got QB rank, obviously, Justin Herbert, one of the better quarterbacks in the league. They got him ranked 6th. Flags against. There you go. There's a disciplined team. Do you think that's going to change under Jim Harbaugh? No. They're going to continue to be a disciplined team. They're going to continue to have a low level of flags thrown against them, so I expect that to continue. Strength of schedule, easy schedule. Other than playing the Chiefs twice a year, I mean, Denver and Vegas, you know, maybe there's 3 wins right there, and they're probably playing third or fourth place schedules. So there you go. Number 1 special teams, which again, that's a thing I expect to continue with Jim Harbaugh. So, and then of course, here you go, 8th in draft rank, right? They felt like they brought in some good talent this year. Now the coach rank, they have Harbaugh dead in the middle at 16, and okay, but he's proven himself. He's been a winner in the past. So, yeah, you may see him as a middle-of-the-road coach simply because you don't know what to expect in a second go-around. But I think Jim has proved himself to be a guy who can come in and win immediately. You give him a great quarterback like Herbert, and that's a team that I think can really outplay their ranking, okay? So I've got him at 13, and I also have them making the playoffs. I'll get to that in a little bit. Where are we at here? We're at 52 minutes, guys. We're going to, I think, blow past the hour. So are we having fun? Here, let's have another drink of Purple Kool-Aid. It's good. It's going to be tasting good tomorrow, too. You watch. All right. Let's go look. Let's go back to my browser. And we're going to pull up the Saints. I don't love giving the Saints love. I don't love giving the love. Okay. 25th. 25th. ESPN's got the Saints. Let me go take a look at why in the heck I have the Saints ranked 14th and winning the NFC South. That seems crazy. All right, let's take a look. Here's my offensive and defensive ranks for New Orleans. Okay, so 17th, right in the middle of the pack offensively. Let's find them. And then 22nd in defense, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact they're just a little bit older. So let's find out. Let's go to the wins formula and find out, okay, what's up with New Orleans. So here we are. So here we go. Points for, points against, top 10 last year. Okay, there was a narrative about Dennis Allen. You'll see it right here. Dennis Allen is the 32nd ranked coach in the NFL. They don't like Dennis Allen. In fact, I think a lot of people expect him to be fired. I think maybe there's some metrics here that show that Dennis Allen maybe is a better coach than people think he is. And I just think there's something about maybe just following up Sean Payton and you know, Derek Carr's kind of a nondescript quarterback, and they've just kind of been forgotten in a way. They've been this like veteran team who's supposed to challenge, but always comes up a little bit short. I think they're going to win the division this year. So let's take a look at some other areas. Again, another weak schedule, another good special teams, another good draft. So there you go. There's another team that I think, at least in terms of the way ESPN thinks and the way that I think that we're going to differ. And in fact, on that topic, let's bring up, okay, so this is actually going to change a little. So I have my own power rankings that you can see here that I did. Okay, over here, I've added in Mike Clay from ESPN and Cynthia Freeland from NFL Network. I've added in their numbers. They do analytics. And so I've put their numbers in. I put my numbers in. And then I've averaged out all three and had kind of a new ranking system. And so you can see a lot of the stuff that I did is pretty consistent. They've got the Jets popping up. They've got Houston popping up. They've got Atlanta popping up. They got the Rams lower than I have them. They have the Jags lower than I have them. They have Cleveland popping up a little bit. Obviously, they got the Saints and Chargers lower than what I have them. But I think, again, the proof is going to be in the pudding. It's going to be the tail of the tape. How will things turn out? We will see. So I'm going to put my numbers up against theirs, and we're going to see how it turns out. Okay? So let me just close that out. All right. We've done that. We've done the power rankings. We're at 55 minutes. Let's get to... Let me pull up my main cam again. Let's get to my week 1 picks, shall we? We're right over here. Come in here. Okay. So, you're going to have to take my word for it, okay? Here's how I saw the first 2 games. And again, I tried my hardest to record a show on Tuesday. Just ran into troubles. Just couldn't quite get that show the way I wanted it. So here I am on a Saturday, right? So Thursday and Friday have already been played. This is the way that I saw it. Here, let me pull it over. Okay, so I had... So these spreads, I don't know how current they are. These were the spreads that I saw, I think, maybe before the Kansas City game happened, okay? So at that time, you had Kansas City at home favored by 3. You can see there that I have my own personal spread, right? I had Kansas City favored by 1.5. Now this column here, or 2 columns, that's going to show who I think will win the game, okay? And then over here, we're going to see if it's going to be a cover or not. So in this game, I had Kansas City winning, but I actually had Baltimore covering. Now that didn't happen. So I'm 1-0 straight up. I'm 0-1 against the spread. Now, obviously, we know I lost that one by a freaking toenail, right? Like, I mean, obviously it was the right call. I mean, clearly the shoe was on the white. So it's like, what can you do? And we're talking about 1 inch, maybe less. But you could see John Harbaugh putting up those 2 fingers, right? He was going to go for 2. So that game was either going to end in a Baltimore loss by 1 or a Baltimore win by 1. Either way, that would have covered the spread. Now, obviously, that would have hurt me on the straight-up pick if Baltimore converted the 2. But so I guess the best way it could have played out for me was if Baltimore had gotten credit for the touchdown and then not converted the 2. So, and then we'll talk about the Friday night game, right? The one in Brazil, which was Green Bay at Philadelphia. So Philly spread coming in was to be favored by 2. My spread was Philly by 2.5. So my difference was Philly by 0.5 point. So basically my prediction there was that I had Philly winning straight up and I had Philly covering the spread. And they did, thank goodness, because they kicked that... I wouldn't say it was meaningless necessarily, but they kicked that field goal late in the game for the cover, so I appreciate that. So far that puts me at 2-0 straight up and 1-1 against the spread. Okay, now before I move on to the rest of the picks, I actually want to talk a little bit about my league-wide picks, okay? And let's see, we'll do the league-wide picks. We'll do we'll pick the Vikings schedule. Okay, and so here you go. So here's my playoff picks, right? You can see them right here. So I've got, in the AFC, I got Miami winning the East. We've got Baltimore winning the North. We've got Jacksonville winning the South. We've got Kansas City winning the West. My 3 wild cards are Buffalo, Cincinnati, and the Los Angeles Chargers. Then in the NFC, in the East, we've got Philadelphia. We've got, in the East, we've got Detroit in the North. We've got New Orleans in the South. We've got San Francisco in the West. 3 wild cards being Dallas, Green Bay, and the Los Angeles Rams. Okay, now you're going to see some color coding here, and what I'm indicating to you there is my Super Bowl picks, okay? So, in the AFC Championship game, I actually have Baltimore beating Kansas City, and in the NFC Championship game, I actually have Detroit beating San Francisco. And you know what? Man, I don't know if I updated these wins or not. I was doing some changes. Yeah, I didn't update some of those. Anyway, that's my bad on that. But I actually have Detroit at 12 wins and San Francisco at 11 wins. And so I actually think that that NFC Championship game will actually be in Detroit. So my Super Bowl pick officially is Baltimore and Detroit, and I have Baltimore winning the Super Bowl. And just a note, as a Vikings fan, I've been a fan for 37 years. Seeing Detroit in a Super Bowl before my team that would hurt me. That would hurt my feelings. So I'm not saying. I mean, look, we all want to be right, right? But if Detroit didn't make the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be mad at that either. So, okay. So then, I didn't actually write this down anywhere. I'm just going to talk to you direct. I did. Let me see if I have it written down here. Yeah, I did pick the Vikings schedule. So I'm actually going to pull it up here. Okay, let's go over to ESPN. Let's go to the Vikings. And as much as it hurts me, I got to stick with the data, right? So my data's coming out. It's telling me the Vikings are going to be 7-10. I hate that. I think they're going to be better. But I'm just going to pick the schedule based on my metric, and then I hope to be wrong. That's kind of where I'm at with that. So the first game at New York, I think that's a win. We talked about that, 1-0. The game at home against San Francisco, I've got that as a loss, 1-1. Then the game at home against Houston, I've got that as another loss. We're going to be 1-2. But then the game at Green Bay, I already had it as a win anyway to put us at 2-2. But then Jordan Love getting that sprained MCL in the Brazil game kind of helps our chances, right? I think that we could definitely beat Malik Willis even if it's in Green Bay. So that'll put us at 2-2. But then here's where the season goes wrong, right? So we've got the Jets in London, and I've got that down as a loss. Man, that feels like a game that we could win, though. I'll be honest with you. I think we could beat Houston too. But then we've got Detroit at home. Another loss there. So now we're at 2-4. Then we're going to LA, down into my neck of the woods to play the Rams. And away against the Rams, I got that as another loss, 2-5. Okay, then we're back home against the Colts. All right, we're 2-5. What happens? We're home. I got that as a win. We're 3-5. Okay, then we got 3 straight roadies. We got Jags, Titans, and Bears. All right, so I think lost to the Jags. I think we can beat the Titans. And I guess I'll go ahead and give us a loss to the Bears. So at this point, I've lost track of where I even am. So let's see. We were 2-3, 2-4, 2-5. Right, 3-5. Okay, so then we're 4-7 at this point. 4-7, and we're home against Arizona. I think we can beat Arizona. We're 5-7. Man, oh man. Then I think I think we can beat. Now I'm off somewhere. Okay, anyway, I know eventually we're going to end up 7-10, but I think Arizona we win at home. I think Atlanta we win at home, and I think Chicago we win at home. Man, we're on a roll here. Then at the end of the year, at Seattle, home against Green Bay, at Detroit, I've got those all as losses. So we end out the year in a slump. So anyway, whatever. I picked the schedule, right? So that was, go back through that. A win, New York win, San Francisco loss, Houston loss, Green Bay win, New York Jets loss, home against Detroit loss, at Los Angeles Rams loss, home against Indianapolis win, at Jacksonville loss, at Tennessee win, at Chicago loss, 3 consecutive wins at home against Arizona, Atlanta, and Chicago, and then 3 consecutive losses at Seattle, at home against Green Bay, and at Detroit, which is the equivalent to, if my math is mathin', 7-10. So anyway, that was, sorry for that being a little bit bumpy. I kind of came into that one a little bit late. What I really wanted to do were the picks. So let's bring the picks back up. Let's get them to where you can see them, actually. Here we go. Nice. Okay. Now, we talked about these two. Okay, I'm going to save these guys here, highlighted in light green. We're going to save those. Okay, so we've got the Cardinals at the Bills. All right, Buffalo is favored by 6.5. My spread is Buffalo 8.5, so I've got the Bills winning and covering. Titans at Bears. The Bears are favored at home by 3.5. My spread is, ironically, I hate how much my metric loves the Bears. It actually has a more of a road team, not a road team, but a middle of the pack kind of a team this year. But in this particular game, my metric loves the Bears. So I've got them by 10. Not winning by 10, but my spread says 10. So I got the Bears covering it, winning and covering. All right, then we've got Patriots at Bengals. Bengals are favored by 7.5 at home. My spread is Bengals by 11.5, so I've got Bengals winning and covering. Then you've got the Texans at the Colts. The Colts are underdogs by 3 in this game. I've actually got the Colts favored by 1, so I've actually got Indianapolis both winning this game and beating that spread. The underdog coming through on that one. I don't have a ton of underdogs or really road teams winning this week, so I think, I guess that's kind of par for the course for week 1. So anyway, we've got Jaguars at Dolphins. Dolphins favored by 3 at home. My spread is Dolphins 2.5, which means I have the Dolphins winning, but I have the Jaguars covering. Okay. Next up, we're gonna skip that one. We got Vikings at Giants. Right now, the Giants are at home, but they are underdogs by 2. My spread is actually Giants by 0.5 point, so my difference is 2.5. So we've got Giants winning, and we've got Giants, the Vikings not covering. So we've got the Giants beating that spread. Okay. Next, we've got Broncos at Seahawks. Okay. Seattle favored by 5.5 at home. My spread is Seattle 7.5, so I've got Seattle winning and covering. This is the Sunday nighter, I believe, Rams at Lions, Detroit by 3.5 at home. My spread is Detroit 2.5, which means I have Detroit winning, but I have the Rams covering. And then finally, the Monday nighter, we have the Jets at the 49ers. San Francisco's favored by 4 at home. My spread's 7.5, so I've got the Niners both winning and covering. Now, on to my final thing, which I am calling the fermented 5. Okay, and the reason why I'm calling it that is because I think that fermented is such a versatile word, right? Ferment means to process, and so obviously I had to go through a process to make these picks, right? And then ferment also means to incite. Okay, and I think that maybe my picks could perhaps incite a feeling in you. It certainly incites a feeling in me. And then of course, ferment, is a process used for beer making. So I'm going to call it my fermented 5, and I think, hey, if I go 5-0 for the week, then I think I get to drink a beer on the next episode, right? But for now, we'll have some more Purple Kool-Aid while we wrap up this show. Okay, so on to the fermented 5, and they are this: 5 games I have personally bet on. I put $20 down. My winnings, I think, would be like close to $500, which would be very cool. I could really use $500. So I put my bet slips on Bovada. I've got my $20 down. So here are my 5. We've got Steelers at Falcons. Falcons are actually favored at home by 3. I've actually got Steelers by 1.5. So I've got Steelers outright winning and covering. Not covering, but rather, just like, I forget what the terminology is, but basically like the Falcons aren't covering. Steelers are winning that game. Okay, next up, we've got the Panthers at the Saints. The Saints are at home and they're favorites by 3.5. My metric, and I think it's because I have Carolina as like the worst team in the league, so my metric is actually favoring the Saints by 17 points. So with that huge difference, I clearly have the Saints winning and covering. Third game is Raiders at Chargers. Chargers are favorites by 3 at home. I've got their spread at 11, and again, my metric loves the Chargers right now, so the difference is 8, so I've got the Chargers winning and covering. Next up, my fourth game, the Cowboys at the Browns. So you know how I feel about the Browns. The Browns are actually favored at home by 2.5. I've got Dallas as a favorite in this by 6.5, so I've got Dallas winning easily in this one, and Cleveland not covering. So Dallas with the upset there. Then finally, my fifth pick is Commanders. Yeah, Washington Commanders and Buccaneers at the Buccaneers. Buccaneers favored by 3.5. I've got the Bucks actually. Again, my metric doesn't love Washington either. I didn't talk about them, but it doesn't. Tampa, I see kind of middle of the road, but they're okay. I've got them favored 10. That's my own personal spread, so I've got the Buccaneers winning and covering, and that is my fermented 5. And so I wanted to leave you with this, okay? So I've been on the spreadsheet. So here, let me bring me back to the main cam, and I just want to leave you with this, okay? First of all, obviously I'll be watching football all day tomorrow. Then I think on Monday I am going to spend that time reviewing the game and kind of coming up with my own notes and thoughts on that game. And then I think I'm going to record a show on Tuesday night. And so you'll probably see that Wednesday morning. So that's that. But then my last thing is this. Let me just get my hand ready on the stop recording button. We're at an hour 10, guys. So I did it. Vikings Hour and then some. We're going to have a motto for this show, and that's this. There is this narrative about the Vikings about winning one before we die. And frankly, I've been a fan of the team for 37 years. Yes, I want one, obviously, but when I look at the direction of this team, and we'll talk so much more about my feelings on the state of the team, the front office, the coach, the quarterback, J.J. McCarthy going forward, I think we are deserving of so much more, and I think we're capable of so much more. And so I think not just one, I want more. Okay, and so my motto for this show is play vicious, be victorious. Peace.